Hey, 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 everyone.
Hello, are we live?
We are. The time has come. So, how are you, Federico? How are you doing? Federico, can you hear me? There we
I
go.
asked you, we are live, but
Yeah.
I didn't have the song. I couldn't listen to anything.
Meanwhile,
Hello,
I'm asking questions and I just noticed that you're starting to fidget with your headphones. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that explains it.
sorry,
It's
slow,
all good.
very busy, and I'm jumping up and down to get everything done today. How are you guys?
Yeah, how are you guys? How are you feeling? Where are you from? Is it your first challenge or you coming here once more?
I think Rigoberto is the first time he come here.
Yeah, it's
I
the
think
second or the third time. Yeah, I've seen him
the only
a few
two or
times.
three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Rigoberto.
We got Carslide, who Amir. We have more people. I saw a lot of people in the name now. That list getting longer and longer.
Yeah. Few of the attendees are anonymized for us as LinkedIn users. So hello to everyone who's anonymized.
And yet,
I do not envy you, honey. I do not envy you. Minus 25. Okay. Yeah.
oh Jesus, minus 25. Oh, I
I
just
have
got
been with.
cold.
I have experienced
Oh,
minus 30 or even above,
yeah,
but
man. Yeah, I
but
was
no.
in Sweden at minus 13, 14, or something like that. It was crazy. So minus 25 is just. We got Martin, we got Gundar with the coffee. My friend Gundar is here with the coffee.
Yeah, yeah. See, he's transitioned from shots to coffee.
We got one of my ambassador, boy Jesse. Thank you for coming. Suleiman.
Oh my God! Did you see the last message from Honey in February?
Uh,
Were they gonna dip into minus 45?
I can't see the call coming through the microphone. I'm freezing our screen, my ears, and everything, man.
Hey, also, if some of the visuals start to lag at that temperature, it's not our fault. Trust me, it's not our fault.
Bon dia, Pierre. Horatius. Horacio. Joanna. We got Joanna.
You got Pierre,
Hey,
Norman,
great to
hey
see
Norman,
so many people.
and that's
Got
so fun.
Norman.
It's also very good to see new faces.
I mean, by your name, Hanien, I'm sure you are not originally from Canada and probably come from a hot country or warmer country than Canada. How did you make the transition? Where are you originally from? Crystal, with that, Joseph. Okay, 30 people. Let's go.
All right,
Avis.
so let's go to the agenda. So for those of you who have been here, you already know what the drill is all about, right? But for those of you who are new here, welcome, first of all. Welcome to the challenges. And basically, what me and Federico do every single month, without a doubt, unless we go critically ill, which happily never happened before, is we go through the challenge dataset, right? Once the new challenge is being announced, we also go through it, make a workshop, and try to explain to you, hey, these are some of the things that we noticed about the dataset, which you might want to take into account. You can absolutely ignore everything we say here, but you might also want to listen to some of the things, right? Not everything has to be done. These are just, again, few ideas what you could do. So we're going through the data set. We're telling you about a few different practices that might be coming handy here. We also talk about different visuals that might be used here, and yeah, a few other things. The main idea is have a good time first of all, And secondly is to make sure that you guys feel comfortable sort of tackling the challenge. So you know how to prepare yourself, so you know what to build. And one of the reasons also why it's very important to read through all the information that's within the challenge, you're going to see that there's also called a brief section where we also tell you a couple of questions that you might want to take a look into. Remember, those questions that we have there, it's not a case where you have to answer all of them, because I think we have like 10 of them usually. You don't have to answer every single one of them. Those are just some ideas that might help you focus on something, because every single report has to have a purpose, right? You can't just analyze everything because, well, I had a number here, so I might as well put it here, right? So you don't do that. There has to be some sort of idea behind the report. So, yeah. Um, Before we go into it, Federico, any other word?
Now, just welcome everybody. I can see a lot of people from all over the world. Thank you guys for joining us. Very, very important what Avis just mentioned. And that's because I prepared a couple of things for you today, back end and a little bit of the front end. And one of these things I prepared for the front end is related to what Avis just mentioned. What do I do? What kind of analysis? What is my idea, my focus? Okay, and when I show you, I will explain. I had no time to finish it, but that is the idea. Okay, but it's important, guys. It's not about just opening the file and start throwing number. Is my focus is going to be to analyze: are they more delayed in summer than in winter than in autumn? Okay, focus. Pick up an angle. Okay, and present your analysis on that angle. Okay, um, should I carry on, Avis?
Yeah, go ahead. Feel free to
Okay,
share the screen,
you
guys.
know that I like to show my back end before I do anything. Here I go. Is that showing anything? Can you see it? Yes.
Yep, we can see it now.
Okay, so today, okay, normally I got my. I don't know if I can I make that bigger. No, I don't think I can make that screen bigger. Oh yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, the first thing I do is to create two parameters that they locate the folder my data set is in it, and the name, okay, and the name of the file. Now you can see that my source is the file parameter. It's not gonna get lost. If I don't change that data set from anywhere, okay, it's not going to get lost. You only need to say into your client, okay, and tell, hey, change the folder parameter, okay, and Power will pick it up and bring your data set to life again. And then we have a different today. There is a process called three-step modeling that I would like just to show you very, very, very quick. Okay, because it can be long, it can take longer than normal, but in this case, it's very simple. One second, I got something here in the middle. The first step is the raw data. I just load the raw data. I don't do nothing else. That is the raw data file. From there, I go to an staging process. Okay, in the staging process, it is where I start making changes to my dataset. Okay, so that is my staging process. As you can see, we have month and year in the dataset, but I don't have a date. Okay, and I would like to actually be able to use a calendar table. Therefore, I need a date column. Okay, so I decide to say, okay, if I want to know how many delays there are in February, I need a whole month or the end of the month. So I decide to create a column that is called end of the month. Okay, and that is very simple because it's just a custom column, okay, that I created. I like to have my date at the beginning, so I move it to the left, and then I don't need that year column or that month column anymore. I don't need it. Therefore, I hide it. I don't delete things, guys. I remember that I told you that I got to choose columns. Let me come here. No, I think here. Okay, I come here and I hide the information I don't want to use. I don't delete by the sake of deleting. Okay? And then my last step, guys, always the data type. If there is any other step of chain type, I deleted the previous one and I only leave one at the end, okay, of my step, my cleaning step. Why? Okay, I make sure that all the information coming from the raw data to this data, because it's a reference table, it follows the same process, and the last step is give me the correct data type. Okay, from this I created, okay, three. I create. I don't know what happened. Okay, I don't know what happened here. I didn't do that because I was kidding, but I created three dimensions. Okay, one is the airline with the carrier ID and the carrier name. I remove the duplicate. I organize them or sorted. Ascending, I think it is. Okay, change the type. I did the same. I didn't do with that one, but let's do the same, guys. Right click, remove duplicate, and now by name, I'm gonna ascending. I think it's done. Actually, it was done. Because it's a big table. And my last step is the chain data type. I introduce my calendar table. Remember, this is just code. I just copy and paste this in a new query. It tells me, hey, give me the start date, give me the end date, and your fiscal year. I call it, and it comes back with this. Remove the columns I didn't want to. I duplicated a column to obtain this Q3. I duplicated that. I take off or delete the first, keep the two first characters. I gave it a different name. I reorder the column, put it at the top. Remove the column that I forgot at the back and change type. Okay? Think about, you already have done all your steps or your transformation step. So now I want to bring all these tables to another folder called the modeling folder. Think about that. All the data coming to the raw data here will follow these stages. This will keep up or we update with the data coming to this data, and this will pass in the same way to this data set, keeping everything clear and simple. If you can see, I only have these steps. So that's what we call the three-step data modeling process. I learned it from Ken Pools. Ken Pools is one of the oldest MVP. I think when you are playing with Excel or comma separated value file, it's quite good to do. Something that I would like you to know too, to add to this, is that in the calendar staging, or here in the calendar, at the moment, I'm giving a date, but you actually can change that to pick up the max and minimum day of your fact table. So if your fact table grows in dates, okay, so it will, your calendar table will adapt because you are now picking up the maximum day and the minimum day from your fact table. Once I have everything done here and I'm happy, I check that my last step is change. Look at this calendar. I go there, Control A, I know it's gonna do that. You have to going back to text. Now it is what it is. Everything is as I want to. Another thing that I did, guys, is that, okay, I think we are having some problems on LinkedIn. Everybody can see me. Can you guys tell me the ones in LinkedIn, everything is okay? It doesn't work. Okay. Okay, so how many people do we have now? Okay, so I carry on for those. Sorry, I think we are having some problems in LinkedIn, and I think that you can connect to YouTube, where you can also connect to the webinar. I'm sorry for the problem. I think that has to do with LinkedIn, nothing to do with us. I do apologize anyway. Another thing that I did, okay, in the fact table, because I created this dimension and the dimension have some kind of ID, carrier ID, and airport three-letter code I'm using as an ID, I removed the carrier name and the airport name column because I had them, okay, I had them on my dimension tables. So that's what I did here. Let me share now the front, it's loading. Okay, so I went to the first, after doing that job at the back, I prepare my relationships. I make sure the calendar table is marked as a date table. Make sure everything is okay. Why he didn't pick that up? I don't know. I think I made some changes now that I shouldn't have day. Okay, that is done. Sorry. Mark as the date table, very important. I got OCD, so I need to have everything properly in place. If not, I don't like it. As you can see, there are some columns that I hide. I don't need them. By hiding them, I got a better, clear picture of what I have in the front end here. Okay. Another thing that I did, guys, I went table by table to ensure all of them have the right data type. Important in airports, you have latitude and longitude. Make sure you call them what they are, and you will see that everything is fine because you have two little word maps here in in your table. So I did that per table, guys. Per table meaning that you have 20 tables, you have to go table by table, making sure, okay, you have the correct data type. In the calendar table, another thing you have to do is to make sure you sort by the corresponding column. If not, you are going to have April at the beginning of the month, so on. Okay, all these steps, guys, must be done. Don't jump it. Don't go on the quick. The reason I do that per every file I open is because by doing it all the time, it gets so repetitive that I don't think about it anymore. I just do it. So, what I was talking with Davis about is what I want to do, what is my approach. And my approach on this occasion will be kind of a dashboard, yeah, dashboard where you see information regarding a specific airline. You can come here, you can enter here Alaska. I think there is an airline called Alaska, something. Okay, and we'll give you information regarding that airline, delay by month, or whatever you put on the canvas, okay, it will be displayed per airline. Kind of infographic, informative report. That is my approach. That's what I want you to think about it. Okay, is what is my approach? Throwing numbers for the sake of throwing numbers. Hey, we know we did it in the past, so we know what you're doing. Okay, so guys, remember this idea can be copied. So anyone want to copy the classic report airport idea where you enter the name of your airline in a filter on this filter, and you put information around here and visual, live visual, column bar visuals, any visual you want to is welcome. Okay, so you can copy it, and that is my approach. I also make sure I have my ZoomChart visual downloaded, ready to work. I didn't have more time today. And at the bottom, I got some general notes, some condensed information general. Okay, it's telling me, okay, that I got 9,920 um, flight arrivals, okay, in a more condensed information. So think about you go to the airport and you look at the screen and you can enter, I don't know, British Airways, and it gives you all the information about what it is contained in the data set about British Airways. That was my idea. You can copy it. Avis, that is for me today. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I'm coming back. No worries.
I can hear you now. Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
yeah, we're looking like yeah.
All good. All right. So yeah, one of the things that Federico already mentioned, guys, is always think about sort of like how you're going to be approaching this, right? And there is no way on how we can say that, for example, this is the only way on how you do this. No, trust me. When I started off and Federico started off, we just made it work at first. How to make it work properly, have automation rules and everything applied to it afterwards, that's what we try to figure out afterwards. But first we needed to create a report because it was requested, so that was our job. That's essentially what we're about here. So there are different ways on how you can handle this. And what Federico already showcased you, the approach of three different stages basically of the raw data, the staging, and the actual live data. So that's one of the ways on how you can also tackle and try to avoid a lot of mistakes or sort of apply common practices, because it allows you to create a proper data model. If you're going to look at my data model, there's no proper data model. It's just a flat table, right? And this is one of the ideas that I also wanted to kind of give you is you have to play around with what's available to you. You don't necessarily, if you don't have the knowledge on how to do the data models and everything, you're too afraid to it, don't be afraid of it, because you don't necessarily have to do it straight away. No, go step by step, but you do need to learn it. The most important thing is, do understand that you are going to be sort of needed to learn proper data modeling sooner or later. You can try to avoid it, but it's going to come chase you afterwards anyways. So sooner you learn it, the better. But you can still create reports even with a flat table. Now, when we look at the table itself, like for example, what I did, right, is every single time I tell you this, that whenever I load in the data, I always make sure that I load in the dictionary if it's available, so that I can look at it whenever I need to. And if I want to hide it from a developer's view, so it's not always there on the right side where the data is, you can just hide it right here as well. Or you can unmark it from loading into the data model. There are different ways on how to handle this as well. But having a dictionary at your hand is also a very good one. So that's another thing. When it comes to the visuals, one thing that Federico also mentioned to you is try to decide what you're going to be focusing on. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this may also implicate how you're going to be tackling the visualization side of things as well. So, for example, if we go into our website, let me just quickly open it up. If we go to the challenge, like I said, the brief, for example, which months experience the highest delay rates? Okay, how do flight patterns cross for different airlines? What are the primary causes for delays? Let's see. And at some point, I just noticed weather. So weather is a factor for delays, right? Cool. Okay, let's check if I can somehow manage this data, or sort of find a way on how I can filter out this value. Is if you look at the columns, we do have a column called delays due to weather, right? So that's an indicator that weather was involved. Sure, we don't know what exactly was the weather, but the weather was a reason for the delay. So a very simple way on how I could even just filter out the data is on the data model. I could just go to the column where it says delay due to the weather. So we can go for review, go to columns. This is just easier to find things. Delay due to weather. And how do you make sure that this is the right one? Well, you just say number of filters greater than and 0. So that this is going to include every single flight that has even one of those flights where the delay has been caused due to weather. And in this case, it's in minutes, but there's another column just due to weather. And I could just filter out the data and focus only on the weather affected flights, right? The same way I could similarly approach every other aspect that we have given to you as a sort of common cause for the delays. That's one way in how you can handle this. But the sort of downside of that is that you're eliminating a lot of the data, right? You're just focusing on a portion of it. So an alternative that I want to give to you as an idea is try looking at the types of data you have here, right? And the column names. This was one of the triggers in my brain. So when I looked at the column names, you can see we have total delays due to carrier, late aircraft, national aviation systems, security breach, weather. So those are essentially reasons, right? Every single reason has its own column with a value of how many flights were affected by that, which means that theoretically I could start to play around with pivoting and unpivoting. Now, what's the benefit of that? I know the numbers are going to be incorrect because you have to play around with it to make it proper. But if I take the original column and then pivot some of the columns, you can see I have created a column called reasons for delay, which if we take a quick look at data table right here, scroll down to the right, you can see this just has all those unique reasons. Now, the numbers is a different issue. We can tackle it separately. But because of this column, I can now create, for example, a timeline. And this is the reason why you would have to tackle the values. But I essentially have the same number for every reason, right? But what it already gives you as an idea is, I could create something based on the reason of delay, use it in a visual, and have a proper distribution as well. So this is one of the tricks that you always have to think about, right? Whenever you look at the data, is there something that I can create from already existing data? Is there something I can add to it? Maybe I can apply some sort of grouping somewhere. Because, for example, one thing that you can do as well easily is if you look at these columns where you have delays due to late arrivals, for example, right? We can see that, actually, let's go into the Power Query. The reason for that is It's going to be a little bit more manageable. There we go. Full screen. Perfect. So if you go in Power Query under View tab, there's a property that you can enable, column profile. And if you enable it, it gives you this portion right here. So what this gives me is I can have a very quick overview of the whole column. So for example, if I just click on one of them, so for example, delays due to carriers reasons, I can see that most of the values, actually 149 of them, are going to be with 0, meaning that the carrier wasn't involved in the delay. But there are different other values. So you can kind of see a distribution for that. You can also see the minimum, the maximum value. And this is where things start to get interesting, right? So typically, when I ever see minutes, I would be like, okay, probably I could go with like intervals of 15 minutes, right? But if I see that the highest number is going to be 38,000, yeah, I don't think the 15-minute buckets are going to be enough to handle this, right? So I would probably go like, I don't know, half an hour, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, plus 5 hours, or something like that. And just group these values all together as well. Because that also gives you another way on how you can look at the data. In order to group, you can apply different mechanisms. You can do it directly through Power BI from the data side. So, for example, if you right click, remember this, you can create new groups. And based on bin size or number of bins, or you can physically move the values. Or if you want to tackle and kind of look at it, you can also use DAX. You can The one thing that I just ask you to do not try to do what most people are used to doing in Excel. Do not create these massive strings of ifs, nested ifs, where if this doesn't happen, then if doesn't happen, if then if. Try using something else. Like, for example, I don't know, a switch function. Just try to familiarize also with different DAX parameters as well. So the reason why this is so applicable is because there's multiple ways on how to tackle every single scenario. That's one of the things that me and Federico have been always talking and trying to convey to you guys as well. If you see something done by somebody, right, it doesn't mean that that is the only option. It's one of the ways on how to achieve this. There's probably 10 different other ways on how to achieve that or a similar result. Um, as far as the visuals go, the one thing that I think is going to be very useful in this sort of analysis is going to be a timeline, because we do have 2 years and we have a comparison with them. And even without any conditional formatting or anything, I think anybody who would be looking at this line and they have a flight coming up right here would be very happy, because we can see there was a drastic decrease in the amount of delays. But then we can see, okay, the further we go, the more delays are starting to happen. So what happened again? But overall, the trend is a lot better, right? We can see was the highest point. We're right here now, so things are a lot better than what they used to be a year ago. But there's still a little bit of a wiggle room there. Now, for the visuals, what I was thinking about whenever I started to put this together is I wanted to see if the metrics and sort of the trend line is following an average line. That's one part of it. And visually, what I wanted to notice is how do the separate months actually place on the line. So for example, how many of those are going to be above the average line, how many are going to be sort of below but not even on the minimum, and what's going to be the worst month. So kind of quickly differentiate between them. So my first idea was, and this is the whole thought process of me creating a visual, right? In order to use a timeline, for example, I do need to have a physical date column, which I do not have in the original column. So one, you can create a dimension for the calendar, which would be recommended, but I'm lazy, so I did it straight away. So what I did is I just used the date column. I created a new calculated column, which essentially uses the year number. I use the month number. And this is the part where a lot of people get confused, right? But we don't have a day. That's fine. Just put in 1 or 30. Doesn't matter. You can put in 15, right? Because what I'm going to do afterwards is I'm only going to go down to a monthly level, but I need to create this hierarchy. Because as soon as, even if it's the first time that you're doing this, it also the Power BI sort of model to understand, okay, this is a date. It's not just a random year or a random month. There's a pattern that I'm following here. So what I did, I just forced it to be on one. Then when I created in the hierarchy, the whole built-in hierarchy, So this is in Latvian, year, quarter, month, day, and I'm just removing date because, well, there's no month, it's going to be the first of, so no reason to keep it there. Then for the date itself, again, use this for the x-axis. And for the total values, I had total arrivals, for example. Boom. Okay, cool. Looking at two massive columns, sure, seems interesting, but kind of boring as well. Because there's nothing really to compare between two massive columns, right? So I'm starting to play around with the granularity. Quarters, that could work. Months, yeah, so either quarters or months. I went with months initially just to kind of see the fluctuation. Once I did that, go into the formatting options and make sure that you set the initial display unit to the one you actually wanted to. So either top or bottom, or go to custom and say that, hey, I do want to start with month as the initial unit. What this does is, for example, by default, this is going to be the experience, right? And this is one of the things I recommend you do from time to time as well. Just switch between the pages and look how it's going to look by default. So this is going to be the entry point for everyone. So what we do in our visuals is we allow you to also define that entry point and modify it. So in my case, initial display, sorry, not period, but unit, I'm going to say it's custom and it's going to be months. So now when I switch between the pages, by default, this is the starting point. They can still zoom out to quarters, they can still go to years, they can still do the drill down afterwards, so they can move up and down. But the entry point is what I'm mostly concerned about. This is also very important for those cases. You can probably imagine, right? If you have a little bit of 1 year, like 1 month from 2013, let's say in this case 2023, and almost every single month from 2024, right? Keeping on a yearly basis would just make no sense because you're essentially comparing 1 month versus 12 months. But if you make this a starting point, okay, I can see why this is happening, basically, right? So always think about those sort of little things, but also important.
It also have
Sure, yeah,
it also have a very aesthetic way of, if I am opening my report and you take me to the two columns,
yeah,
I might actually just go and switch it off and go to do something else. But
yeah, yeah.
if I am opening my report and I think something that is calling my attention, I probably carry on investigating that. That was the idea of the report, for you to check the report and investigate. So
Absolutely.
the point that you can actually set up your entry point in ZoomChat, I think is quite interesting.
Because this helps you with just predefining, okay, what's the initial sort of view that you're looking into? You can modify it afterwards. That's all good, but you're not starting with randomness, basically, right? So I did this. Then afterwards, I was like, okay, I want to understand where I did, where in this case, my thought process, right? Where I did the best, the worst, and what's the average. In this case, since we're talking about delays, you have to keep that in mind, right? So what I did is I went to thresholds and I went, okay, I want the first threshold to be an aggregation of maximum based on series one. So series one is the total arrivals. So that's what I did on first. Cool. I scroll down. I'm going to enable the second threshold. It's also going to be a line, but I want to focus on the minimum. So I want to see the month where I did the worst, basically. Cool. Going down, enable the third one. And like I said, I also want to go for the average. So this gives me sort of an area in between which every single point is going to be located. If we keep looking at columns, I think most of you, or every single one of you, are going to be saying that, yeah, this just looks weird, right? Every single column gets cut off right here, whereas in reality, you're just focusing on this area right here. So naturally, my next thing is I switch this to be in line. So I go to series configuration and make this a line. You can keep the smoothness if you want to. Some people just hate the smoothed effect, so don't worry, you can also disable it. It's completely up to you. But a line, I think lines most of the time, especially if you're just focusing on one, for example, metric, they do require a marker. So I know exactly about which point are you talking about. You can make them, of course, bigger or smaller. It really depends on how you want to visually keep it. I'm just going to set it up as default. So I did this. Cool. Now, I want to understand the up points, the middle point sort of, and the lowest point. So for that, I'm going to be using conditional formatting. cool. I see the lower boundary, the middle needs to be enabled. Cool. So the lower boundary is automatically going sort of below the minimum. The average middle point is actually going to be based on this series, but it's going to be the average, yeah. And this one, the green part, the upper limit is going to be this series, but maximum. Okay, so that's the middle point. Oh no, sorry, lower point. This is the middle point, and this is going to be the max. Yeah. So what this allows me to sort of see is these lines. Every single point is conditional formatted. I can see that the yellow is just a tad too bit bright, right? So don't forget that adjusting the colors is a good practice. If you think it's too bright, it's probably too bright.
Yeah, it was too many colors for my liking.
Yeah. But if you use, for example, a dark theme, that probably would work. But with the
Yeah,
light theme, just not really. So with the line, it's kind of interesting that it follows the pattern, but at the same time, it just also makes me feel like it's just a bit too overwhelming because the line is changing, the markers are changing. So what I'm going to be doing is you can't really force the line to ignore the conditional formatting. That might be something we add in the future. But the cool thing about this is that since these are basically like pieces of Lego that you're putting in together, what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to say that for this line, there's actually going to be zero thickness. So I just have the markers. And the thing that I do afterwards is I just use another series, same value, make it also to be a line. So it follows the same pattern. I don't want the line to be in front of the point. I want the point to be the main impact. So I'm going to say that first, the line itself is going to be, for example, like a blue color. And I'm going to find a property called display order, and I'm going to lower it. So display order allows you to define how things are being drawn, right? Always think about sort of like having a depth to the visual, right? So what's being drawn first, what's being drawn afterwards, and so forth. So the lower the number, the first sort of the higher priority the item has. So if it would be one, that's the first thing. The second one gets drawn in front of it. That's how it's being done. So I need to lower this. So this needs to be drawn before the data points. And this is how I'm basically achieving a same color line with different colored markers. If I wouldn't need it, I can just do something else as well, right? But this is the one thing that I want you to always kind of play around with is that ZoomCharts visuals are definitely very flexible, but at the same time, it might seem just a bit too overwhelming. Trust me, I get it. I've been working with them for 7 years now, and that's why I can do it so easily, right? It doesn't come naturally. You just have to learn it. But the more you play around it, the more interesting ideas start to come to your mind, basically. And that's one of the reasons also why we always recommend that if you do have any questions or if you get stuck on something, there are channels on how you can reach us. So just reach out to us. There's documentations, there's a bunch of different videos available. Just play around with it. Because remember, the main idea about the challenges is learning, right? Developing new skills, learning new sort of approaches that you can take and introduce into your own reports. That's the main idea. But yeah, so for this one, I'm going to have it basically like this. So what I'm doing here is essentially I want to focus on all the points that are below the average to highlight them in red. Everything that's above the average but not really the max is going to be in yellow, and this one is green. If I don't give you any additional information, if you just look at the chart title, well, yeah, disregard this, right, because it's in Latvian. But knowing that I'm showcasing the amount of delays, do the colors make sense? Not really, right? It's the other way around, basically. Because the higher the number of delays, I wouldn't say, yeah, guys, we did great in January 2023 because
no,
we had 70,000 delays. That's not what I would say probably in a meeting, right?
that's
So
what we call a negative positive. In some occasion,
exactly,
the positive is negative and the negative is positive.
absolutely. In this case, it's just the higher the number, the worse it really is, right? We're not going to go into negatives because everybody would love minus delays, but it's just not going to happen. But the colors have association. That's why you can't really always just trust the process of applying sort of lower colors, middle, and upper. You have to think about what is it going to be representing. So in reality, I just have to switch these around. So this is going to be in the green color, and this is going to be in the red one. Yeah, but maybe a bit too dark. Yeah, this one's okay, actually. So this is how I would probably look at it. Exactly the same data, but purely visually, this tells a completely different story. And that's the one thing you have to focus and follow. Colors have meanings, especially the typical sort of the traffic stop colors, right? So the red, green, and yellow. Those are very sensitive colors in the sense that they represent something in our brain that's just imprinted from the kindergarten. So small little details that matter a lot.
And there are going to be occasion that you are going to have to use it in something that is not a indicator or an
Yeah,
arrow, and you have these kind of clashes in your head or trying to balance. Okay, the brand is red, but I cannot use too much red because it's negative.
yeah,
Okay, so there is a balance about how what happened when I want to play with red, but it's not an arrow indicator. It doesn't mean down or up. You can, but you need to be discreet and to know how to approach the use of those colors when needed. And I'm on the opposite. On no, I'm not gonna use red because it's negative. No, if the brand is red, if Sunchar brand main color is red, I have to use red somewhere.
yeah. It's just how it
Okay,
is.
it's correct. So, but that happened with me at work. Sometimes I say, well, not necessarily all red is negative. If I give my wife a red road, I don't expect a slap in the face from my wife because the color is red negative. Totally the opposite. So think about how we apply colors.
Yeah,
Okay, it's very important. One thing that I'm gonna do not cut corners. Do your calendar table properly. Okay, I'm doing Power Query. Okay, but I want also you to know to understand that we are working trying to prepare everything for the webinar. And sometimes we need to rush and
yeah,
use this trick. And one more step that I would like to perhaps is that I think Norman has given us quite a lot of things he has done, and that is telling me that he has a process. I'm very happy about that, and I want you, the new guys, starting in the business, starting to play challenges, starting in your career as a data analyst, to start creating your own process. Okay,
absolutely.
in the same that when I load data, I go to the Power Query and I organize everything the way I like it. Okay, I want you to actually find your process, and every opportunity you have, please use it. If you're gonna play with numbers, yeah, you don't need to do anything. But if you're gonna participate in a challenge, try your utmost to ensure, okay, that everything is done properly. Every time you send a report to ZoomChart, we can see the front end and the back end.
Yeah,
We
don't forget
can
we get the
see
PBIX file, so we see everything.
correct. And you will make points if your file is organized. You will make points, everything is in order, everything is named properly. Okay, and you will lose points if you just have throw numbers up there with not making any measures because you were a little bit lazy. Okay, so process is king.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all. Just wanted to mention that.
No, it's all good.
It is carry on.
It's a valid point, right?
I
But
hope
yeah,
so.
so if you create, for example, something like this, right? So currently I'm using a same value, which might seem like, okay, but we're kind of limited to total arrivals now. We've talked about this many times before. So for those of you who are here for the first time, we do have an archive of every single workshop. So on the website, you can find a recording for previous ones and take a look at those as well. Different things are getting covered, so it might be very beneficial. But the one thing that I would probably just do is, first of all, convert the most important things into measures. And then remember, guys, you can create field parameters and just create basically a measure that is being compared and just switch between them. Whenever you do that, just make sure you put it in both of the series if you're going for something similar, right? Don't keep one of the original and the other one as a parameter. So otherwise, it's just going to conflict itself. But yeah, what I did here to kind of add a little bit more understanding to the user. So, okay, we get the lines. What are these lines? So what I did is for the thresholds, I also went ahead and said, okay, I'm going to have a val label and I'm going to add the textual label. And here is the tricky part. As soon as I remember that I am going to be using sort of parameters here, I can't really say that this is the maximum amount of arrivals, right? So what I can do is I can say that this is the max value. Same goes for the bottom row. The minimum value is the min value. I'm not associating it with anything specific. I'm just saying, hey, this is going to be the min value, that's going to be the max value. And for the average, well, same principle. This is the average value. Now you can see all of these are right here. You can also play around and decide, okay, where are you going to be putting them? What I think kind of visually works a bit better is that min max is sort of something that's going to be always locked in a sense, right? It's always going to be at the top and at the bottom. So what I did with these is I made sure to position both of them into, not into the, but to the right side. So this is now here, it's the max, and now it's above. Now the other way around, we're gonna put this. There we no, that's the first one. Second one, you can see there's a lot of settings. But instead of above, I'm gonna put it under, so to kind of force the boundaries of everything. And for the average, what I would probably do is just add some sort of a background to it, right? I would keep it on the left side or move it to the right. Don't know yet, but I would play around with it. The other thing that you might notice is now when I'm starting to hover over these points, you can see in the tooltip, well, we now have a duplicate. Well, because there are two different series that I'm essentially referencing.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you can do here is decide how you want to approach this and do the following. So for every single one of the series, you can decide whether you're showing it in the legends, whether it's enabled by default, or whether you're showing it in the tooltip. So if I enable also legends, by default, makes sense, right? You can see every single series is also in the legend, it's also in the tooltip, because otherwise it would just disappear. But knowing what I have here, actually I'm gonna do this way. I'm gonna make two copies of it, just to kind of play around with it. So for this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say that the series which has conditional formatting applied, so the markers, I'm gonna say that this particular series I'm not gonna have in the legends, but I'm gonna keep it in the tooltip. The reason for this, oh no, sorry, I'm gonna remove it from the legends. I'm gonna keep it in the tooltip, but for the second series, I'm gonna remove it from the tooltip, but keep it in the legend. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm telling to the user that, hey, the blue line is total arrivals. The markers are just indicating the actual value and position, right? So whenever I now hover over the points, you can see it follows the color that is represented by the point, or vice versa. I can go ahead and do the reverse effect. So here I'm on second series and I'm going to say it's not going to be used in the legends. Oh no, actually I can keep it in the legends but not show it in the tooltips, and vice versa. For this one, I'm going to be showing it in the legend removed. Sorry, confused myself here. Yeah, and for this one, now I'm going to remove it in the tooltip. So I'm basically referencing the second series. So now, despite the fact that it's green, yellow, or red, it's always going to be blue because the line is blue. So it's purely just thinking about how visually you're going to be affecting this, right? So sometimes it just works better in one case or another. It's the same as with the conditional color itself. Like for example, what we've done with customers as well is some corporations have their own sort of policy on how they apply good or bad numbers or high or low numbers, depending on what sort of industry they're from. So we had, for example, a weather forecasting station that was doing a data analysis. So for weather forecasting, right, when it's low, it's cold, it's blue. That's association that you get with it. The high, well, you can go either red or yellow. So you have basically a gradient between those two. It really depends on the situations. It's the same for the visuals. You have to kind of play around with these things and just see which one feels better. And because of this, one of the things that I cannot emphasize enough is whenever you're creating a report, don't be afraid to create multiple copies of the same visual. Don't force it to be in the same page right straight away, but just create a separate page and play around with different variations. See which one you like better. You at that point I'm like, okay, this one works better, right? Cool. Go back to the initial page. This is actually going to be the chart that I'm going to be using here.
That is my favorite trick. I normally do two or three of different, put it aside and say, okay, if I do that in this one, and I do that in this one, and
Yeah.
I do this in this one, and then I say, no, I keep it that one. But that is a great idea, guys. It's a really good tip for you to because what people tend to do actually is doing the same visual. If you're doing the same visual, you cannot compare the changes you are making. Okay, so make a copy, eh? Or two or
Exactly.
three copies, place in the same canvas in front of you and make the change and see what happens. But that's a really good tip.
You know what's the worst scenario in that sort of situation is that you, for example, create a copy, right? You convert the visual and you're like, "No, I like this one better." And then you delete the original. 10 seconds later, you're going to be like,
You share. Oh,
ah. Which is
I
okay
changed
if
my
you're in
mind.
desktop and you can do Control Z, right, to kind of undo. But what happens if you already saved the report? You're
Yes,
kind of stuck. That's it. You're in this moment right now. And sometimes just recreating what you already have had before can take a lot more time. So that's the trick there. Just keep those versions for now. When you have the final version, just delete everything else because you don't need it anymore. But when you're building, there's no such thing as extra. You can keep it there and just remove it afterwards. What I do as well is I always keep one report which has basically all those versions as a raw file. And then I have sort of a compiled version.
guys, you had 2 minutes to fill out the form and to win a
Yeah,
book.
sorry.
We need your feedback. So please spend 20 seconds filling out the form and sending it to us. It's important for us to know how we can do better. And another little thing, I think Norman told us all the discrepancies he found in the data set. It's a real life data set, Norman. That's why the discrepancy. There is no perfect ever data set. So when you find this kind of discrepancy, you say, okay, that data set is real. Okay, because the data is entered by humans and we humans make mistakes. Okay, so the data set will be perfect when you make the changes that you can do actually in Power Query or in your ETL process, okay, to make it better. But yes, expect all these kind of problems
Hmm.
ever at work and in fun. That's it. We have 1 minute. Any questions, guys? Questions? David, do you wanted to? Could you? Oh, whoa. That's too long to be done in 2 minutes
Or 1 minute, yeah.
or in 1 minute. So the idea is to get all the numerical column and pivot it. Yes? When you do that, okay, it's summarized. Okay, get the value and summarize it, but you don't want to everything summarized. Okay, then a different idea of how to, okay, I want to do this way, but I don't want this to be summarized. I different processes you can do in Power Query, and there are different processes that you can do in DAX. As
Yeah,
dividing by, we were talking with Avis about it when he explained to me, but it's a bit more complex than just giving you a mini explanation. Okay, you need to know how the data is being when you flip it and where you want to see the data.
yeah. Because sometimes one hint that I can give you, not always, but sometimes a simple divide function can sort a lot of things. Yeah, I think Norman's comments, we understand it, but I don't think we have enough time to go into it currently. We can look into it afterwards and all those discrepancies. But at the end of the day, like Federico said, the thing about the data is the real data is never going to be perfect. It's just what it is. And as much as we would every single report developer would love to tell you, no, we're building visuals every single day. Nah, trust me, most of the time we spend trying to figure out what's happening here. How do I put this together? How do I get the numbers to be correct and everything?
I gotta tell you how I spend my day today. I got a report with more than 500 measures. Okay,
Yeah.
not all of them are being used. They were tests, they were checking, they were
Yep.
not used before. Today, I spent the whole day in 23 report pages, going page by page and marking them as used. So at the end, I will get the use, put in a folder, the unused, I will delete them, okay, and then I start foldering again the measure in different folders. But that has been my day. Nothing of visuals or nice stuff, being checking measure by measure and making sure it's being used. So
Yeah.
Abe is
And
100% right.
so what Federico just said is foldering, for those of you who don't know, is on relationship view or model view now it's called. You can select, for example, multiple columns, and right here you have a display folder, and you can type in, for example, total measures. So that's going to create a folder where everything that I just selected is going to be tagged into. I've done this on this, for example, dataset as well, you can see. So now you can see one measure hasn't been added anywhere, but everything else is categorized. So whenever I need something, I open up the category.
Good luck if you find the ideal way of foldering, of putting
It's
further
no,
your
there's no way.
measure. It is no way. Even if you have your best willingness, at the end of the day, it's going to be in folders, but a mess. A mess
Oh,
folder,
absolutely.
or a
Yeah.
folder mess. Uh, I, no matter
Trust
how
me, I've
you,
tried multiple variations. I've tried to create
yeah.
separate tables for measures and then foldering in the measures table, but at one point you're just like, nah, just keep the full list and I'll delete what I don't need afterwards.
I gonna put every measure per page. What happens if that the same measure used in 3 pages?
Yeah.
Do you duplicate the measure?
Do
So
you say
yes,
it's being used in 2 pages, all pages? So what do I do with
yeah,
them?
using. So that's something that you have to deal with. They say when you find mistake, your approach to fix that mistake is your approach. There is no 100% right way or my way or your way. So
All
that
right.
is for me.
Yeah, I think that's it from us guys today.
Sorry, guys. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience with LinkedIn. Um, I don't know what happened. I was presenting, but I hope to see your entries very, very soon. And remember, anyone want to copy my idea, please go ahead. And thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you guys, and I'll see you. Well, me and Federico will see
Bye.
you in the top 5 announcement.
Bye.
Bye.